So by default here, this is what the rig will look like. So you'll notice that as I open this scene, the rig looks okay, but it's kind of flat. It's not super visually appealing. And there's a few different reasons for this. And this kind of goes for all rigs, not just this rig. The first one, which is very basic, is that this character is in low res. If you zoom in here, you can actually see the nickeling. So the nickeling, basically that means that you can see the sharp edges, the flat edges of his cheekbones right here. You can see it in the eyes. You can see it in the ears. This is always going to make rigs look a little less polished. So the first thing I can do is just, well, set him to high res. Now, if your scene runs slowly, put them in low res until you're ready for the play blast. But this is kind of like for that final play blast look. You can see already that makes the character look much nicer. Okay, what other things can we do right off the bat here? The next thing we can do is we can turn on ambient occlusion. This is just going to add some slight shadow detail. And we can also turn on anti-aliasing right here. You can also go to renderer, viewport 2.0 and turn those on right here. So anti-aliasing, let's actually up the samples, the quality, as well as screen space ambient occlusion. Let's do that as well. Boop. So with that, you can see it makes the image just so much more crisp. If I turn that off and then go back to low res here, just to compare. So low res, boop. See how just meh it looks, especially the eyebrows. They've got these like weird dark lines. It's just, there's something about it that automatically says viewport, like not that interesting. So by, again, increasing the resolution of your rig if they have it, and then turning on ambient occlusion and screen space, ambient occlusion and anti-aliasing, all of a sudden it just looks cleaner, more professional. It'll slow things down, but you really only need this for the final play blast. Okay, so with that, what's the next thing we can do? Well, the next thing is the lighting, honestly. By default, we're stuck with Maya's default viewport lighting, which is not bad, but it's not going to be super interesting. It's going to be default, which for most scenes honestly is exactly what you need. You don't need anything more. As animators, we honestly don't need to worry about lighting for most shots. But that last scene I was working on definitely looked a lot prettier, and it just makes it stand out and pop in an interesting way. So there's a lot of different lighting setups you can do. For me, my favorite is a 3-point lighting setup with a sky dome added in for color. So let me go over the 3-point lighting setup first. We've talked about these before, but it is just a very good lighting setup. So basically a 3-point lighting setup is 3 lights pointed at your character. So I like to use Arnold lights, mostly because I do Arnold rendering as well. So I'll create an Arnold light, and I'm going to use area lights. These are my favorite ones. So I'm going to create an area light, and let's actually just go in here and hit 7 on the keyboard, and you can see that there's not that much detail in there. And actually, no, for demo purposes, let's switch things around. Let's actually show the sky dome first, because this is going to be a little bit more visually impressive from where we're starting here. So right now, if I hit 7, we've got no lights. So let's actually add the sky dome first. Go to Arnold, lights, and I'm going to add a sky dome light. And a sky dome light is basically a huge dome that just throws light in. And Arnold comes with Maya. If you don't see it, just go to Windows, Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and make sure the Arnold plugin is turned on. Or when you first install Maya, it should be in the options to install in there. If you didn't install, you might just have to reinstall it. So we've got this sky dome here, but you can see that it doesn't really create a very interesting light. It's just very flat, very even. The reason for this is that right now this big huge dome is just casting one color, white. And I can kind of prove this by, let's switch this to red. Just an evil dark red light. Not very interesting. This is not what a sky dome is made for. It's not made to just cast one light. Instead, what it's used for is to cast an HDRI image. An HDRI image is a high-res image that has been taken to capture multiple exposures of light at the same time. Now, if you go to this website here, HDRI Haven, I'll post the link there. This has a bunch of free resources. These are all free. You can download all of these if you want, which is just all sorts of different light setups that you can bring into your scene. So if you want your character to be in an autumn park or in a cathedral, this will change the lighting in your scene and give you that light, that color from the scene. So for example, if we go in something, let's say like this, you can see, especially on the white sphere, how this one has that kind of pinkish white color versus something like this where it's just a yellowish white, versus like a nighttime scene where it's much different. Yes, it is the hidden secret. It is amazing. HDRI images are they're gonna put your lighting to the whole other level. So to do this, I'm just going to go into my sky dome and click the texture icon beside the color, so that little checkerboard. I'm going to choose a file. So I want to link a file into the color. And I've already downloaded some HDRI images. So let's take, which one do I want? Let's take this one. So you can see it's a little dark, but again, there's multiple exposure levels, so you don't have to worry about it being a little too dark here. I'm going to open that up. And all of a sudden, we've got this. And our scene is lit. And you can see that it's actually casting shadows, it's casting fill light, all the stuff that like we would have to work very hard for, it's already in there. If I want to change the light direction, I can just take my entire sky dome here and just rotate it. And you can see it actually changes the lighting on the character. So I can just kind of put this in place and there we go. We're getting this very nice lighting. And it gives that nice color to it. That's the main thing. Lighting is its color. And I can prove this here. The lighting on me, this is not just light. This is a lot of people when they first start lighting their scene, they just throw in lights and everything is white. And that's it because, well, that's a light. No, lights have color, they have temperature. And the light in front of me has a temperature. And with this light that I have, I can actually control the temperature. So for example, this is a yellow light. The one hitting right here, you can see it's slightly yellow. I can change this to be blue. You can see how that really changes the look of the scene here. Suddenly, I kind of feel more cold, maybe sickly, compared to if I really put yellow light. Now there's this like hot feeling to it. It's much warmer light. Light has color. Sunlight has color. Fluorescent lights have color. They all have a slightly different hue to it. So let me bring this back here. I think it was around right around there, maybe. Let's go a little more orange, where I can get really picky. So that color is not just a color, it is a temperature. And this is what I like about Arnold, is you can see right here it has use color temperature. This would allow you to use that specific value. With the Sky Dome, we don't have to worry about that because we are using an image which already has the color temperature baked into it. That's the whole point. So we start getting that natural color of the scene, as well as all the bounce lights of the objects reflecting into the scene and all of that cool stuff too. But this alone doesn't usually make for the most interesting lighting. It's a good start, but we can push it even more. Similar to what we were doing in the facial demo, how okay, we can push the face a little bit and we can shape it a little bit, but then it gets so much more interesting when we start sculpting all of it. We can start sculpting our light, creating light so that it hits in certain places more than others, and basically just makes it more interesting. And you can see that I'm doing actually here. See how there's this shine on my cheek right here? This is because I have another light set up specifically to add some shine to this side. If I don't have that, I'm gonna see if I can turn it off here just as a demo. And you know what? I was just talking about everything on the screen and I was showing my face. I totally forgot to share my screen. Ah, curses. So while we're still here, if I turn off the light over there, you can see how that shine isn't there anymore as I move my face. Which, does it make a big difference? No. But when you have that, suddenly it adds that depth to the face. You see a little bit more of the contour. It's allowing the light to shape the scene. I've got a light in front of me here as well. If I was to turn that off, you can see how that really changes the whole setting. So using light, you can really start to create different atmospheres in your scene. And this is where the Sky Dome doesn't quite get us all the way. It gets us most of the way, but we're missing that ability to sculpt. Now this is where the 3-point lighting setup comes in. So let's actually take our Sky Dome right now, and I'm just going to turn the intensity down to 0. This just turns it off so that we don't have to see the lighting in there. And I'm just going to use this as a base to start my 3-point lighting. So I'm going to go to Arnold, Lights, and create an area light. And I'm just going to scale this up. And we're basically going to be using 3 lights, 3-point lighting. So let's take this, duplicate it, move it over, and duplicate that. And the 3 lights we're going to be using are going to be let's select this here. The first light is going to be the key light. This is the key light, the main light, the one that is kind of the most important. We have a fill light, which will help fill in certain details. And then we have a rim light. Okay, so let's start putting these in place. So the key light, this is going to be the one that basically is the main light direction. In this case, I want it to match a little bit with the light direction that we're getting from the Sky Dome. This way I'm not kind of countering the lighting setup. And let's actually kind of bring it up a little bit, scale it up, and now increase the intensity. Now with Arnold lights, there's 2 ways of increasing intensity. You have intensity, so if I turn this up, I would have to turn it up quite a bit, maybe 100, no, not even 1,000. There you go, 1,000 is just starting to come in. I don't like using intensity. Instead, I like to use exposure, because this tends to give a little bit more finesse and control over the lighting. So use the exposure to get close to where you want. So let's get this to maybe 18, and then I can use the intensity to slowly bump that up a little bit more. So it's like the main control and the fine-tune control. Changing the area light to a disc shape is really nice too. Yeah, so with the area lights, you can actually go right here, light shape, change it to a cylinder or a disc. That can be really nice. You can also take the spread and make it so it's a little softer. You can take soft edge. There's so much you can do with area lights. They're fantastic. Now the other thing you can do is use color temperature here to have the light use the actual color temperature. I'm not going to worry about this because I've got the Sky Dome in place. So we've got our key light in place, and you can see that gives some nice lighting, but the shadows are really dark. It's just pure shadow. On the other side here is just pure black. Not going to be Oh, I'm trying to follow your tutorial. Did you increase the exposure on them? And did you make sure to hit 7 on the keyboard? So exposure and intensity have to be pretty high. Usually a value of about 20 is good. It also depends on how far you are. So for example, if that light is over here, you can see it's much darker. It's based on distance. So double check those. The other thing to double check is try creating a different light and see if that lights up the scene just as a test. Okay. Now, let's do our fill light. So the fill light is basically going to be there to fill in the shadows. The shadows are too dark right now. In real life, even in the darkest environment, if you cast a light into, let's say, a dark room and shine it on someone, that light is going to bounce against the back wall and then come back and fill in some of the shadows. The shadows are not going to be pure black. The only time they're pure black is in a void, like in space. You have one light direction and then there's no light bouncing back, so it's going to be pure black on that side. So this is going to be a low light just to fill in here. So let's take that exposure 16. That's pretty close actually. So you can see how it's not enough to be the exact same on that side as the other side, but just enough to see the details in the shadows. And this really depends on the environment. Sometimes you want it to be a little bit more even. Sometimes you want it to be a little darker. Just depends on the environment. I'm going to go with maybe 16 here. So something like that. And really, you can see how it just kind of, it's perpendicular to the angle of the key light because we want it to fill in those shadows. Now, the last one here is the rim light. The rim light is a super intense light that is usually placed on the other side of the camera. So this is where, let's actually create a camera for our scene here. And camera. So let's say we want the framing of the shot to be right there. We would take the rim light, kind of move it on the other side. And this is going to be a very high intensity light. So let's put this up to 20. Let's go even higher. Let's go 23 for now. And I'm just going to move it just to the point where we start seeing a rim of light. That's really the point of it. And you can add more or less, but you can see how it's just a little bit of light that comes in here. That's that light that I have right there. And what this does is it helps to pop the character out from the background. If we turn this off, for example, you can see how that whole edge of the character kind of just, it disappears into the background. Is that bad? No, not at all. But by just adding that in, it makes them stand out. Now, you don't want to go too far with this on certain scenes. So for example, on an outdoor scene, I wouldn't want it to be super intense because where's that light coming from? But if I just add a little bit, you can see it's not much, but it's still there. If I turn that off, you can actually see it. It just makes the character stand out a little bit more. Maybe I'll put it to 21. So that's a 3-point lighting setup. And this lighting setup on its own is really good. It'll give you some really nice results. But as we can see, the color is kind of, it's there, but it's not super interesting to look at. So this is where taking our sky dome here and then turning that on, you'll see it's a little too intense now. We'll have to turn that down. But now we start getting a little bit of the color in there, the yellow light. I might just turn down my key light right there. So with this mixture, we start to get a scene that's just a little bit more visually interesting. Just my Arnold lights. The dome light works though. Interesting. Why would the Arnold lights not be working? Let me think about that one. So with this, we've got our lighting set up. It's looking pretty good. Another thing we can do is go to lighting, turn on shadows. This will just help add some extra shadows in the scene. It's not going to be much, but it can be nice. And the character looks kind of doesn't he? It doesn't look really real. And this is, it's not a problem with the rig. It's not a problem with any rig. This is going to be the default for most rigs. Most rigs, when you bring them in, they have the Maya default textures and materials. These materials are good for the most part, but visually they're not the most dynamic. And you can see it especially in his eyes. The eyes look so dead. So how can we make that a little bit more interesting? Well, really it's just a matter of switching it out with Arnold materials. If I open up my hypershade here, the hypershade is basically the list of all materials in your scene. So these are all the materials that go into creating the character. All the textures, all the colors, all of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create some new materials. And this is exactly how you calm down the reflection on the eyes. So I'm going to go to the Arnold section here, go to shader, and I'm going to create an AI standard surface. So right here, AI standard surface. And I want this to be the reflection of the eyes, or the lens of the eye. So to do this, let's call this AI eye lens. So AI is Arnold, is the abbreviation for Arnold. So AI eye lens. And with this, I need it to be clear and transparent. Well, the nice thing with Arnold materials is that they have presets. So go to presets, and I'm just going to take a glass preset and hit replace. This replaces all the options with this glass here. Now, this is a little bit more advanced, but every type of object has an index of refraction, an IOR index. This is basically how light bounces off of it. Glass has an index of refraction of 1.52. This is not the same as the eye. Luckily, you notice how there's this triple line right here? If you ever see an attribute with these triple lines, click and hold on it, and you get a drop box. So in this case, I can set the IOR to the cornea. And look at that, 1.37. This is the index of refraction for the eye. Done. I've got an eye material. Now, I'm just going to take my old eye material right here, right click, and I'm going to hit select objects with material. That selects the eyes right there. And then right click on my new eye lens and assign materials to viewport selection. So now I don't even have to click on anything. Boom, done. And with this, because these are Arnold textures, if we zoom in, you can actually see the reflection of the world in the eye. It's a little hard to see with this angle here, but you can see the lights, and let me see if I can find a good angle here. Let's actually take this and rotate it. You can actually see the world rotating in the eye. There you go. You can see the buildings and the trees right in the eye. So there we go. So with that, we can keep going with this. So for example, the next thing we could do is the clothing. We could make an AI standard material, bring that in. My favorite thing is doing the skin. So let's do another one. So let's do an AI standard. So this is going to be the same process here. So AI standard surface, boop, create that. This time, let's go to presets. Well, actually, first, let's rename. Always name your stuff first, or else it gets very confusing. AI skin. Presets. Skin. Replace. There you go. We've got a skin material. But we need the texture, the skin texture that the other material has here. So I'm going to find my skin texture right in here. So let's switch this to names and make that a little bigger. Okay, so AI pants. This is where I'm hoping that they named it properly. Body. That should be it. So if I drag that in, yeah, there we go. So creepy. So this is the skin texture right there. What I need to do is I need to connect that not into the color of the attribute. With skin, you need to go to subsurface, and you want to put it into the subsurface color right here, which you can actually see has a few different presets. Skim milk, or milk in general, has subsurface scattering. Marbles have subsurface scattering. Things like jade, porcelain, those all have subsurface scattering. Now, we could just take a color here, but in this case, I want to take my out color from the body right there, and I'm just going to middle mouse drag it into the subsurface color to connect it. So this gives us the skin material. Now, to apply it onto our character, we'll do the same thing. So find the skin, the old skin material, right click on it, select objects with material. And let's make sure, okay, selected. Take your new material, right click, assign material to selection. Done. Now, that doesn't look better. Ugh, what happened? Basically what happened is that the skin is just a little too shiny right now. Very easy fix. Take your specular and just turn up the roughness. Roughness is how shiny it is. You can see if I put it all the way up, he looks like he's made out of plastic. If I tone it down, or technically I bring it back up, so it's making it a rougher surface. That will make it a little bit more skin-like. Now, skin does have an oil to it, so you will get some shine. We just don't need that much of it. Can I do that in the start of my project, or would it bring some problems? You can do it right at the start of the project. I typically do this at the start of projects because then it just makes the whole scene look way better. And it's just more fun to me working with this. So what else can we do? Yeah, so basically at this point you just do this whole process for everything. I could do the eyes, so not just the eye on the outside, but the inner eye, the cornea, or sorry, not the cornea, I always forget. Yeah, the cornea, the iris, and all of that. So let's do another AI standard. We'll call this AI. Not that that's not confusing. This one we'll just leave the preset, just leave it at its default. Don't really need to go into any depth here. Let's find the eye texture. So eye diffuse right there. Middle mouse drag that into our workspace. And I'm going to connect this to the base color. Since we're not using skin or subsurface scattering, I can just connect it straight into the base. Out color into the color here. There we go. And once again, find our eye texture in here. Eye cornea. Right click. Select objects with material. Double check. Okay, good. Right click. Assign material to viewport selection. There we go. Now, with this, we start getting that nice shine in the eye here. Maybe we want that to be a little less, so I could turn down that roughness, but now we get that extra little like highlight in the eye. So not only do we get the main shine, but we get this in the eye, which can be really cool. Maybe tone it down just a little, so we just get that extra little glint at the eye. Are there different attributes you need to use for the hair and clothes? Not really. For hair and clothes, I would just use a standard surface and then just use the color and then play with the specular attributes. If you want a detailed explanation of all of these attributes, there's some videos in the videos of the Twitch page where I go over all of this, as well as on the Animation Mentor campus. If you go to tips and tricks rendering, Maya rendering, there's an explanation on all those. It's basically the same video that's on Twitch, but just cut up into sections. So if you want an in-depth analysis of diffuse roughness and metalness and all of that. I forget exactly how far I go into each one, but there's kind of an explanation of what they do and what they're for. But now you can start to get a little bit more depth in the eye here. So you can see how that's just so much more interesting compared to the original eye that we were dealing with before. And just as an example, let's actually bring in a base copy of Shaman so we can just compare the two. So let's let this load again. Waiting. And if anyone has questions, we can go over them right now. Yeah, the eyes specifically, if anything, just do it on the eyes. Do the lens of the eye and then the eye itself. Your shots in your play blasts and just your viewport are going to look so much better. And also keep in mind, this is literally just the scene in the viewport. When I play blast, it'll look like this. I don't have to do any rendering. I don't have to do any extra steps. It is this done. So it's going to look weird. So let's take our character here. I want to double check which one I have. Oh, I selected both. That doesn't help. You just want one of you. Okay. Let's move them off to the side and compare. So you can see before and after. Big difference. The eyes on that one just look dead. They're just not interesting. Whereas the new one, especially when you get it at a certain light, like a certain angle, is just so nice and alive. The other thing is the skin. The skin on this one it's a little brighter. This is because default materials tend to be brighter than Arnold materials. All I would need to do to solve that is increase the intensity of my light, which is going to overblow the original, but make a better lighting for the Arnold material. So just keep that in mind. So I might have to turn this up to 19 to get that kind of nice contrast in the lighting there. But yeah, it's just a matter of pushing all of those elements. I would do the clothes as well, all of that. Do the teeth, the tongue. It really does make a difference. Now for the mouth, one thing I like to do. So this is going to be a little different. And I do this for two things. So let's turn on the facial controls. So in the mouth, when you have a character open their mouth, it can be very not visually interesting, because look at the inside of his mouth. It is pure daylight in there. And unless you go through a lot of trouble to get shadows to hopefully work, it's just not going to make good visual information. So instead, what I like to do is I like to make the inside of the mouth darker. So to do this, let's actually zoom out here. So to do this, what I'll do is I will select the inside faces of the mouth. So just select faces. Click on one face way down in the throat, and then hold down shift and double click on the face next to it to select an edge loop. This will select the entire loop in that mouth all the way across. Now hold down control, right click, and go to grow selection and grow. What that does is selects all the edges or all the faces next to your selection. Now I can just hit the G key, as in gorilla, to repeat that command, and I'm going to just do it until I get right around to the lips. Not too far, but still inside the mouth. Next, right click. I'm going to assign a favorite material. I'm going to apply a surface shader to it. A surface shader is a material that is pure color. It doesn't get affected by any lights whatsoever. It's just pure. And in this case, I want to make sure that it is going to be black, which it is. So what this means is now whenever the character opens their mouth, we just see shadow right in their mouth. Pure shadow, nothing else. This is going to make things look a lot nicer. So when you have your character talking or doing anything with their mouth open, it's just going to be a little bit more visually dynamic than this. You can see how the teeth really pop and how even just the whole face tends to pop a little bit more compared to this one where it's just kind of more skin tone. Now, the other thing I do with that is I also apply this to the eyes. So I'm going to take the eye lenses here. I'm going to hide them. Just hit Control H to hide them temporarily. And I'm going to select the eyes here. I'm going to select the inner portion of the eye. So once again, select all that, grow selection, and just like so. So I just want to select those faces in there. And let's open up our hypershade. Find that surface shader and assign material to selection. I'm going to do the same on the other eye. So you can see it on this side. See how there's this little reflection here and this glint right in the center of the eye? Eyes don't have that. The inner eye does not have that because it is a literal hole into your face. There's nothing to glint out of. If anything, what you see when there's a glint is red. If you've taken a picture of someone with a flash and their eyes show up red on camera, is because the light is bouncing into the eye and then bouncing back out and showing the color of the blood vessels in the eye. There's no surface there for light to reflect off of. It literally is the inner workings of the eye. So if you assign a surface shader to that, you get pure black, like so, which is much more natural to how the eyes actually work. Now with that, let's hit Control Shift H to bring back the lens of the eye. And we get this much more natural eye where you get a little glint off of the cornea, or sorry, the iris, but the inner eye is still pure black. There we go. That's pretty much it. At this point, it's just keep going. Like add AI standard surface materials to the hair, to the clothes, to the teeth, to everything really. And then you're ready to go. And then what I would do is just, if you want to make this easy for yourself, just take the rig, open it in a fresh scene, and then apply all of these materials in that fresh scene, save it out as your own custom modified rig. Now, anytime you animate a scene with that rig, just bring in your custom version, and it's got all the materials done. It's ready for lighting. You just add the lights, poof, done. You're ready to go. And Pluffy, thank you so much for the subscription. Oh man, thank you. I really appreciate that. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Now there was a question here. Can I do all this and use the My Default lights instead? You can. You're not going to get the same amount of detail, but you, as long as you get this kind of the similar settings, you can do the same. I like the Arnold ones because they're just more detail, and then it's ready for rendering right after. But let's say your computer can't handle it. let's take this other rig here. We can do this very similar things. So let's take the body resolution, put it to high, make sure we can select the body. And let's take the eye lens here. And I'm just going to go to the material. And the first thing I like to do, if I don't have the ability to change it to an Arnold material, for one, make sure the eyes are pure transparent. This is going to get rid of that weird, like, milkiness to the eye. And then go to your specular, and you can just tighten the specular lighting on there. So just kind of push that a little bit more here. And already you can see how that pushes the eye, makes it a little bit more just visually appealing. It doesn't have that old, like half-blind look to it. From there, I can do the same thing with the mouth. I always like to do this with the mouth. Row selection. Boop, 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 boop. That should be good. Let's assign. Now let's do this with the hypershade because it's going to be faster. Assign the surface shader. There we go. Already you can see how that looks way better. I would also do this with the eyes. So by default, you'll see how, once again, if we shine the light in there, how we can see that reflection and that kind of glint right in the center of the eye. So I'm going to hide these and just take these faces and assign the surface shader to them. It's just pure black. So yeah, this is basically it. So you're not going to get the exact same results, but you can still get something pretty darn good.